Next, know your biases. We all have biases. We tend to be either too optimistic, kind of optimistic all the time, or we're too pessimistic all the time. And I think, you know the types. We all have our biases, and we may know them, but we don't fess up to them. So you've got to know them and then, correct, make little adjustments so that, you don't get hung up in those biases. Next, this is probably the most important one, show more humility. Show more humility. Economists tend to overpromise and underdeliver. We got slammed in the last downturn because people thought we could forecast GDP to the, at least 1 decimal point and maybe 5. And then when we missed it, we were like just totally cremated. So we need to, I think, show more humility and indicate what we can do and what we can't do. Be accountable. I think it's a great idea to have a scoreboard. So, you come to your clients a year later and say, here's what we forecast a year ago, here's where we missed, here's where we got it right. And also that helps you know your biases, what's going wrong with your model, rather than just saying, well, we were right, we were better than everybody else, and, forget what it really was. I think we have sort of memory loss when it comes to forecast abilities. We need to analyze rather than just report. Janina Versa, she reports. You don't need additional reporters. She tells us all the data, and she also does a great job in analysis. But we need to interpret the information for our employers. All our clients, all our bosses have, as much access to information. We spend way too much time reporting data as opposed to analyzing and thinking about it at this point. Next, I would say, very important, we need to draw out the implications. This is probably the biggest shortfalling of economists. You go to most presentations, and I will tell you I'm guilty of it as much as probably or more than you are. We give this great economic forecast. We go through GDP, CPI, interest rates, blah, blah, blah. And the clients, and they leave the room, and they say, yeah, we got all these numbers, but then how do they behave differently? How do they behave differently? What do they do with that information? That is why, for instance, if you work for an investment house, you have these economists over here who are forecasting GDP and interest rates, but then you've got to hire a whole cadre of people to be the strategists that say, all right, what do you do with this information? How do you translate that into investment implications for businesses and companies? We should be doing that kind of activity. We should be drawing out the implications so we're not just sort of like shoehorned over in the office of economists. And then when the cuts come for staffing, you don't need these people cranking out these numbers that never work out anyway. You need people that could actually give you actionable advice. And finally, lose the jargon. Lose the jargon. Every profession has their own language. We have ours, and we need to actually sound like something that people could actually understand. So with that, let me stop and take any of your questions, your comments at this point. Yes, please.
Yeah, Noah Sachs. I know, in regards to the deficit,
yes,
the culture in this country is not to raise taxes under any condition, especially energy taxes. And, there's a limit on how much spending you can really reduce. And the problem really with also the lack of raising energy taxes is that it's very difficult, for instance, to compete against public transportation because it's so much more expensive than, for instance, driving your car. And we want to really reduce energy costs. I don't know how you do it without raising the cost of energy.
Well, the question is raising taxes. It is true, particularly in an election year. It's going to be very hard, I think, to make any significant progress against the deficit this year or even probably before 2012 election. But in terms of the big picture, if you look at the share of taxes and spending in this country, I'm not really believing that my view is that we're not necessarily undertaxed. If you're trying to balance the budget, with spending and taxes each equal to 21% of the economy, as opposed to spending in taxes both equal to 18% of the economy. I think you actually will have a more optimal solution at the lower end. But that's a political decision to a large extent.
It seems other countries like Britain can do it far more easily than we could.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how successful the Tories are really in that regard. But I think that the matter of fact is that the tax cuts are expiring, and you're going to see a significant increase in tax rates for higher income households. I think that is a fait accompli. That for $200,000 earnings, singles, 250,000 couples, you're going to see significantly higher marginal income tax rates, dividend tax rates, capital gains tax rates, health care costs, etc. You are going to see a higher tax rate on that part of the population. And in terms of energy taxes, as I said, I think the cap and trade system is probably not going anywhere, and that higher energy taxes could definitely be coming down the road. I'm not sure if it's going to really push people into rapid transit, because again, those systems where they're built, it's maybe I mean, in Boston, I'm from California, right? And you have to ride your car all the time in California, but in Boston, I got with the program and I rode rapid transit every day. But in many cities, you just don't have the infrastructure, which is now going to be very expensive to put up. But I think you could see higher energy taxes in this country. But again, with this year's election, midterm, and then the presidential election in 2012, it is going to be hard to raise taxes. Yes.